Welcome back, guys. Today we're gonna talk a bit about Hogwarts Legacy. I just finished up my first playthrough of the new critically acclaimed open world Harry Potter game, and now I want to talk about my thoughts and what I liked about the game or else didn't like about it. As always, heavy spoiler warning for everyone, and let's get to it. First, let's start with the story. In Hogwarts Legacy, we start our journey as a 5th year, and after a rather epic introduction to the game's world, which involves almost being launched for a dragon, we are thrown on a wild goose chase to find a magical artifact before the goblin Ranrock, who is the main antagonist by the way, and his allies can get their hands on it to start the next wizard goblin war or something. Why are we being sent on this search, you might find yourself asking? Well, simply put, our player character has a funky eye condition which makes him alone able to see traces of ancient magic, which help lead us to the magical gizmo. As you can see, the story is pretty basic in its premise, but executes the presentation involving the characters and locations flawlessly. Especially the companion storylines in which you help fellow students with their problems are great. As of the time of this review, I only finished off Sebastian Sallo's questline, and I must say I'm impressed how good it was. Not only can you learn the 3 unforgivable curses from him, but the story caps off with a boss fight which could potentially rival the final boss of the main campaign in terms of difficulty. But not only Sebastian has a really good storyline, all the companion characters do. No matter if it is fighting poachers and saving magical beasts with your Hufflepuff companion, or destroying a dark wizard crime ring together with the Gryffindor one. So there is something for everyone here. The only negative point of the story has to do with its length. It is comparatively short to other open world story games, clocking in at only around 20 hours or so. Other than that, there's not much to criticize about the representation of the story in the game. One point could be the very basic premise, which I talked about earlier, involving the treasure hunt, but the characters and the interaction in the world more than make up for that. And we will continue on with the characters. There are many interesting and diverse characters in this game. We have them both on the side of the main characters, but also on the side of the villains. I want to first talk about the 2 big players on the villain front of the story. Victor Rookwood and Ranrock respectively. Ranrock is, like I told you earlier, the main antagonist for the duration of the primary campaign of Hogwarts Legacy. And I found it very fun to be pitted against a goblin for a change, because like we know from previous Wizarding World media, most of the time the characters face human dark wizard villains, but never something other than that, so it was a welcome change to see a great character like Ranrock come to life in this game. Also, his backstory is pretty compelling and you kind of feel for the guy, cause he was just trying to give a wizard his wand back and just was nearly beaten to death for it. So you kind of understand why he wants wizardkind to be put in their place for once, even if his methods of killing 15-year-old something students to get what he wants is highly exaggerated, in my opinion. The other main villain is of course none other than the dark wizard Victor Rookwood, who works tirelessly to become something of a crime lord. I don't know, but really he's underdeveloped and underused in this game, especially in comparison to Ranrock. The few scenes he has are really well acted, and that's even more the reason why I wanted his character to get a more compelling story arc than simply being a dark wizard and that's the end of it. I liked the plot twist that he was the one who cursed Sebastian's sister Anne, but that's just about it. His final battle was also really underwhelming for such a major player in the campaign. Truly a waste of a character. After that we have of course everyone's favorite boy, Sebastian Sallow, whose questline could have been the basis for an entire game, instead of a short detour in such an already massive game. I like that he had no qualms about using the dark arts when needed, and he also teaches the main character spells if so chosen. He's also a very sorrowful and split character because he wants to protect his sister, but on the other side he wants to see the ones who hurt her pay, and that's not in her interest at all. But I loved every interaction I got with him, and he's one of my favorite characters in the game. Next is Poppy Sweeting, who shows us the magical beast, and more importantly, she is the one from whom we receive our first flying mount, the Hippogriff Highwind. Her storyline involves the main character and her being pitted against the Poacher Syndicate, which operates in the near vicinity of Hogwarts. I must say I'm not at all finished with her side story, so I cannot say how it wraps up or how I like the ending to her story, but one thing I can say is that I like her character, which draws some clear similarities with Newt Scamander of the Fantastic Beasts series. I cannot say much for the Griffin and Ravenclaw companions because I haven't really involved myself in their quest lines just yet, but when I do, I will make an update following this video on my channel. Of course, there are many professors with which we get acquainted over the school year. Special shout out to Simon Peck, who has given us an amazing performance as the current headmaster of Hogwarts, Phineas Nigellus Black, but all the other actors did great as well as the professors and teachers of Hogwarts. They really came alive in this game. Last but not least, there's the mentor figure, Professor Fig, who accompanies the hero on his journey throughout the game. I liked him alright, but his part in the story wasn't that huge, especially because he couldn't help the hero face the trials and was left watching from the sidelines. The plot about his wife's death is a very interesting driving point of his character, and I like the conclusion to his character arc, even if he got it pretty bad in my playthrough, not gonna lie. Aside from these characters, there are a lot of interesting side characters who don't have much impact on the overall story, but are nonetheless very fun to engage and go on quests with. So all in all, the characters are really great in this game, I like them. So now that we are done with the characters and the premise, I think it's time we take a look at the world of the game itself. Of course, there's Hogwarts at the center of this open world, but there's so much more to discover than just the castle itself. For example, there are a lot of small collectibles scattered around the world for the player to find, or miniature challenges to complete in and around small villages in the vicinity of Hogwarts, but also much farther away. Magical beasts can also be found and captured in the overworld, which was a real fun activity because you can bring them to the room of acquirement and then breed them and get materials for gear enhancement from them. The world seemed of course very huge at first, but after a few hours into the game the player can zoom around on his broom, which makes the overworld feel much smaller and not as overwhelmingly large. Fact is, there are many things to discover, especially in Hogwarts itself. I found myself exploring the castle for 5 hours straight in the beginning of my playthrough, and there's still stuff that surprised me nearly 40 hours into the game. So this is an example for an open world done right. But let's get to the nitty-gritty of the game, the gameplay, which is a combination of combat and exploration. The former consisting of casting basic simple spell attacks and more advanced magic, which has a recharge timer and can't be used continuously. Of course, there are exceptions, like drinking a special potion for example, which lets you fire these spells without the recharge disadvantage for a short period of time. You can also use non-combat spells, which are mainly used for exploration, like Lumos, which helps you navigate dark areas, because it enlightens your surroundings, or Reparo, which repairs damaged things. Useful in combat are also plants, which act as kind of turrets when in battle, or in case of the Mandrake, stun the enemies for a short period of time. While combat is fun in Hogwarts Legacy, the real meat of the game comes in the form of exploration, or more specifically filling the pages of a field guidebook, which is given to you by Professor Weasley at the start of the game and functions like a logbook of sorts, where all your achievements, quests, challenges and so forth are stored. The only way to gain XP in this game and level up your character is by filling the pages of the field guide. This can be done in a number of ways, by collecting field notes, which always tell you a bit about the world and the things you interact with, defeating certain enemy groups, completing quests and much more. So you can choose your playstyle however you want. Are you the battle mage who only goes after enemies and gets his experience that way? Or are you rather the player who goes after collectibles and wants to learn more about the wizarding world as a whole? It's your choice how you play this game and I love it. Small note here, there are also talent points which can be used to enhance your magic, such as making enemies more susceptible to your spells or gaining more healing through potions, stuff like that. Also, the fact that there are no missable side quests whatsoever is a huge advantage of Hogwarts Legacy. Because in most modern day open world RPGs there are always a few quests which are missable and you won't complete by the right time, so you need to make another playthrough, which is really getting on my nerves in recent years. That's also one thing which makes Hogwarts Legacy one of the best open world RPGs I played in recent years. The fact that the developer actively chose to let the player decide when to do quests and not forced him to do them in a specific time frame in-game like many others. Even after talking about the gameplay excessively, there's one thing I haven't touched on, and that is the difficulty of the game. I personally played the game of normal difficulty and had not many problems getting through huge chunks of the main campaign. Only in the final few missions the difficulty spiked enormously, especially the final boss was a real challenge. So yeah, it wasn't Souls level of difficulty, so I can imagine most players won't have a problem beating the game on normal difficulty. But nonetheless, it was a challenge at the end. The last thing I want to touch on in this review is of course the music of the game. It blends perfectly with the overworld while exploring and hits incredible epic heights while battling with dark wizards, goblins, and other evil vermin like spiders. But by far my two favorite musical tracks are played in the final main mission while battling the goblins under Hogwarts and the final boss theme in the fight against Ranrock. These two tracks are filled to the brim with epic goosebump moments and blast all around you while you fight for the fate of the entire wizarding world. I'll link you both the tracks in the video description if you want to have a listen. All in all, the music was very appealing, and when it hit the right spots, it hit them hard. And I would put the final boss theme among my favorite boss themes of all time period. Such a good song. Personally, I enjoyed my stay in Hogwarts and the surrounding area for my extended playthrough of the game. Sure, it has its flaws and weaknesses like underwritten characters like Victor Rookwood or the short main story, but it more than makes up for it with all the love and details the developers put into the game. Is it the best open world RPG? No, of course not. But is it the best Harry Potter open world RPG? To that I can only say yes. It may be the greatest Harry Potter game we will ever get, and I'm really happy that all the waiting and hype finally paid off and culminated in this masterpiece of Wizarding World content. With that said, I hope I could give you a clear view of my thoughts on the game, and I also hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Sayonara.